First Ministers' Conference gets underway in Ottawa.
No hospital for Montreal's Greek community.
And a new award from the Impure Wool Society. Good evening. Canada's Unity Minister says the federal government expects productive talks with Lucien Bouchard at the First Ministers' meeting that starts today in Ottawa.
Stéphane Dion says there are two sides to Lucien Bouchard. He says one side works towards separation, but Ottawa wants to work with the other side of the Premier, the one that wants to improve Quebec's economy. The First Ministers will meet tonight and tomorrow. Paula Newton reports.
As Ottawa gets ready for its photo opportunity with the premiers, much of the groundwork has already been laid to guarantee some kind of success. Two programs are on the table, a new child benefit that would bundle all provincial and federal money into one check for low-income families, and a sequel to the infrastructure program. And many premiers already seem to be on board.
It's a little sketchy, but generally I think there will be, I hope, a strong consensus in a number of these areas that we can work towards.
Then there are the many divisive issues. Natives have been left out of the First Ministers' Conference, and to symbolize how they feel, the First Nations chief singled out this Ottawa statue of a native kneeling before explorer Samuel de Champlain. The offending symbol was covered to make a point.
With the Prime Minister and the Premiers, they cannot walk above the Indian people. They are not superior to us.
Premiers plan to bring up their own beefs, like the federal plan to harmonize the GST.
And I'm saying to you that this different regional treatment on taxation is developing a sense of unfairness, certainly in our end of the country.
Meanwhile, Quebec Premier Lucien Bouchard says he's only here to talk economy and jobs with Chrétien and the other premiers, and some say that's positive enough.
And I believe the fact that he's coming and sharing this time and discussing the issues with us is important. I think it's quite a powerful statement to Canadians.
You know, I think it's great that he's here. I think it's great that Quebec is participating in this meeting and is coming to join us for a reception.
But that touchy constitution and its amending formula are on the agenda. Premier Harris, for one, says he will talk about it, even if others won't.
We don't have a problem with the amending formula from Ontario's point of view, but I know others do. And if it's Jean Chrétien and Mike Harris, there'll be at least two people in the room at all times.
That contentious issue won't come up until tomorrow. Tonight, the premiers start with an easier topic, the economy, at a private dinner at the Prime Minister's residence. Paula Newton, CTV News, Ottawa.
Lucien Bouchard has just arrived at the conference. Barry Wilson spoke to him. Barry, what did he have to say?
Well, Mitsumi, Lucien Bouchard wants this conference to deal solely with the economy and not with the Constitution. He wants to talk about job growth, job creation, economic growth. Also, Quebec's demand for $500 million in GST compensation from the federal government. But Bouchard is fearing that this economic conference will turn into something other than that, and he fears that Ottawa will try to paint him into a constitutional corner.
It's not what you say. The reality is what you see. And if you look at it, it's obvious that Mr. Chrétien is first trying to discuss about the amendment formula, the distinctive character of Quebec clause, and in an indirect way, he will be trying to make breakthroughs in additional jurisdictions of Quebec. There is at least 7 or 8 attempts. It's quite obvious, the forest, mining, and everything.
Now, Barry, do you think anything's really going to come out of this conference?
Well, Mitsumi, as far as the constitutional issue, Bouchard is probably overstating the case. Here in Ottawa Tuesday, Jean Chrétien says he has absolutely no appetite to reopen the constitutional dossier at this time. Neither do the other premiers. Chrétien says he's just not willing to use, as Brian Mulroney said in those old days, is not willing to roll the dice. He said Canada must be changed one step at a time. So largely this conference, Mitsumi, will be dealing with economic issues, slight rejigging of some of the powers. There may be two substantial, at the end of the day, two substantial things to come out of this. One will be a new federal infrastructure program, federal provincial infrastructure program dealing with the high-tech industries and perhaps highways. And the second one will be firming up plans for the next Team Canada trade mission to Asia in January. And Lucien Bouchard has not ruled out participating in that Team Canada mission. Mitsumi?
Okay, thank you very much, Barry.
Thank you.
Political analyst Jean Lapierre joins us now. And Jean, after all these flip-flops that Lucien Bouchard did, he finally agreed to go to this meeting. What made him do it?
Public opinion did that because Quebecers want their premier to be concerned about the economy, to have deals with Ottawa because they're hurting.
Mm-hmm. Now, Leger poll, which you alluded to a few moments ago off camera, suggests that the majority of Quebecers prefer a renewed federalism to out-and-out independence. How should the government respond to this sort of sentiment?
Well, I think they're going to ignore that sentiment because this is not their agenda, and I don't think even in Ottawa and the rest of the country, people are not interested in talking constitution. Mm-hmm. But that pressure of coming to some type of agreement with Ottawa, at least on the economy, is there, and that's why you'll see more and more cooperation between Ottawa and Quebec.
Let's suppose that this distinct society idea flies with the other premiers. What should Bouchard do with that, and does anybody in Quebec care?
Well, if we lived in the dream world, I guess we could think about that, but frankly, there's no buyer for that option right now. And Quebecers, they would love to have a deal. 68% of Quebecers, or 63 this morning, said that they want to deal with the rest of the country. But Constitution is not on these days. Mm-hmm. It's economy. We don't have jobs. We don't have, this is what is really preoccupying Quebecers.
All right, referring to the immediate problems at hand, how would you rate Bouchard's first National Assembly session?
Probably, on a scale of 10, probably around 5, because it's a lot of half-cooked solutions. I mean, on the drug plan, on the Constitution for education for school boards, on pay equity. It's like if the ministers hadn't done their homeworks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you for joining us, Jean.
Thank you.
Montreal's Greek community has always wanted its own hospital.
But now it seems unlikely that will ever happen. That's coming up.
I'm Brian Britt. Coming up on Pulse, an impasse in contract negotiations, and now teachers at the Peter Hall School are locked out.
Montreal's Greek community is furious.
And 200 of them demonstrated outside the Regional Health Board this morning. Zan Lewis reports they've been told they won't get a promised Greek hospital for the elderly.
If Montreal's Greek community feels betrayed, the betrayal can be attributed to changing political realities. In 1994, under the Liberal government, cultural communities were promised special hospitals for the elderly. This was especially crucial for elderly Quebecers of Greek descent, many of whom have learned neither English nor French since they came here.
It's a matter of language, culture, religion, etc., even food.
We have over 80 patients that have been placed in existing institutions, in chronic care hospitals, and they're extremely unhappy. It's not just that they're unhappy, their needs are not met. They cannot even often ask for a glass of water in their language to be understood. The doctors will come and have chest pain, and they can't explain what they're having.
The community had hoped that with the closing of Saint Laurent Hospital, it could be designated a Greek long-term facility. But the Regional Health Board will vote tonight on a proposal to give the building to two other groups. An emergency meeting with the health minister yesterday left little room to maneuver.
He doesn't understand that. He gave me the impression very clearly yesterday that he considers this kind of thing as being the creation of ghettos.
While there's no money for a new hospital, the board is considering a consolation prize for the Greek community, the gradual development of what it calls culturally adapted divisions within existing long-term facilities.
We try to make available the right food for them, give access to people that are able to talk to them in their own language, their mother tongue, and also to have access to religious services.
The Greek community is looking for a concrete announcement soon, preferably within weeks. Anne Lewis, Pulse News.
Fleury Hospital has come under sharp criticism. This for the death of a 75-year-old heart attack victim right outside its doors. When Michel Renon collapsed last January the 3rd, employees called an ambulance rather than rushed to his aid. The coroner's report notes that Renon spent about 10 minutes in a cardiac crisis on the sidewalk during 20 below weather. The coroner says the hospital should ensure all staff help stricken people, whether they're inside or outside of the building. The coroner also says staff wasted about 3 minutes discussing whether to help Renon before calling an ambulance. The hospital's director calls the death unfortunate, but says no time was lost in helping the man.
Teachers at the Peter Hall School in Saint Laurent have been locked out. Management says the school is fighting for its life and charges the union has been unwilling to make concessions. Brian Britt reports.
The lockout began this morning, 2 days before the end of the school year. The Peter Hall School provides services for more than 400 intellectually handicapped children and young adults. The staff is composed of 122 teachers and support staff members, represented by the Alliance des Professeurs. The school is a private institution, but funded entirely by the Quebec Education Ministry. Faced with budget cuts, the school's Director General, Victor Albert, has been seeking contract concessions. The teachers' union says it has done its part.
We are cut for $150,000, and the employees say, yes, we will take it from our salary, not salary, but from our condition, and we give you more than $150,000. And he refused that because he said, I want more.
For its part, the school administration says it wants to increase the teacher-student ratio, cut salaries by 3%, reduce the number of paid sick days, and add a couple of unpaid holidays. With the current impasse in negotiations and now the lockout, the union side says it's time for the government to get involved and assure the resumption of classes in the fall. Brian Britt, Pulse News.
The Quebec Human Rights League wants the Canadian government to intervene on behalf of little orphan girls in China. The Human Rights League says thousands of baby girls in China are abandoned by their parents and they go on to live in inhuman conditions. Many of them die. Today, the League presented a petition signed by 32,000 Canadians, and it urges Ottawa to put pressure on Chinese authorities to protect the fundamental rights of these children. And it wants Canada to abandon its 1994 decision not to link human rights and trade issues. And in just 4 hours' time, summer is officially here.
Yeah, officially it arrives tonight at 10:25. We'll bring it in with a thunderstorm. Perhaps a few showers, but it's not going to be the lost weekend. I do have some good news. As far as temperatures for today, our high for the day was 23 degrees, 73 degrees Fahrenheit, and 1 degree below, actually, the average for this time of year. The record high set back in 1988 was 32 degrees, and the record daytime low of 14 degrees was set back in 1968. We've got a low pressure system that is pushed into the Montreal area. That's going to give us some showers, perhaps even a thunder shower this evening. That's going to continue overnight tonight. We'll still see some showers as this system kind of slowly moves out of our region. We'll still see some showers early tomorrow morning, but it will be broken up with a little bit of sunshine, and we'll have a mixed bag for the weekend, but it won't be a complete washout. I'll have all the details coming up right now. Back to Bill and Mitsumi.
Thanks, Zuna. How about this? A long-distance call, collect, and it asks you to accept the charge.
And if you do, you may get more than you bargained for. That's coming up.
This is Ron Rouge. For the third time, Mario Lemieux is the Hart Trophy winner as the NHL's MVP.
In her case, a California sex line called her 31 times in 5 days. Collect.
Oh, yeah, it was a sex line.
Wendy only found that out, however, after Bell Quebec put a tracer and a technician on the line. Before that, the Pierrefonds resident refused repeated calls from North County Telecommunications asking if she'd accept the charges from HFT Corporation. That, it turns out, is the party sex line from Lake Tahoe, California. Accepting the call meant $4.99 a minute for the service, plus several dollars for the long-distance charges.
Good business for them, I guess, but not, it's a fraud.
Emotionally, if not legally fraud, she adds, because you're under pressure to respond and pay.
If you got 10 calls in a day, you might be tempted to pick it up out of curiosity. Maybe somebody really is trying to reach me, and it's a legitimate call. You might want to push that one just to give them heck on the other end.
Bell Quebec says the reverse call sex line is among several ways questionable outfits operate, but
it's legal to do it this way.
Legal, though, to a point.
Of course, if there are
criminal activities involved, or if it becomes harassing that you get 10, 20, 30 phone calls a day from the same person always asking for collect and insisting and all that. Of course, there are possibilities that now that more further investigation can be made.
By Bell or the police. In Wendy Gallant's case, she did what the phone company advises, refuse to accept collect calls from those you don't know, and call customer service to intervene if the problem persists.
With fast buck artists developing all kinds of sophisticated ways to take your money, there is a one-word bottom line: beware. Herb LUFT, Pulse News.
Denny Lortie has been granted full parole.